I made this film a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly. I think it was 2015 or end of 14. 14. Yeah. Tom worked on it. Tom mixed, did the dub on the film. I was looking around, as many animators do, for opportunities, to make work, and I just happened to read an ad. It was a very unattractive ad from several universities saying filmmakers needed for real lives. Basically the brief was to make a film exclusively inspired from one individual's social media data. And I thought, oh my God, that sounds really boring, and sort of just almost ditched it. But there was a budget. I thought, not a great budget, but a budget. I thought, oh well, maybe I'm into collage and stuff like that. Maybe I could my head started to whir, and I started thinking, well, maybe I could do something interesting.
The allure of the budget.
The allure of the budget, and then I thought, well,
spurred you to great creative heights.
So then I had to think, well, who could I possibly use as my subject? And I went through all my friends, and I thought, oh no, God, they're all, none of them make an interesting subject at all. But then I remembered Richard. Richard came up on for some reason, Richard was always popping up on my page, and I didn't even know Richard very well. And I thought, well, this guy says the most irritating things. But it wasn't just, I'm not going to give the game away, it wasn't quite as simple as that. There was a story to tell. Richard's life had something to make a film about, plus he was funny, and I used to find his posts sometimes annoying and sometimes funny. And then I also thought of Richard's own work, the work that Richard had done, I suppose it was the end of the 80s, 90s, and all his interest in data and his own creative work with data. So I thought, well, he's really the perfect person. So I rang up Richard and asked him if he would be interested in being my subject and, collaborating, because the subject has to collaborate with the filmmaker. And I thought it was added value having Richard being a creative person. And Richard was very encouraging. In fact, I almost didn't put the proposal in at all. I hadn't got round to it. Richard rang me up and said, you put it in yet? And I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to bother,
Just looking forward to seeing myself on the big screen.
Yeah, you were.
And you hadn't even sent it in.
I hadn't even sent it in, but the deadline was a bit like Bunny. The deadline was actually that day. So I rang up the funders and I thought, I'll just sort of find out whether they'll extend it from 4 o'clock till like 5 o'clock. But I didn't actually say I hadn't written it. But anyway, I talked to the guy for ages and he said, it's all right as long as you get it in by the end of the day. So I sent it off to Richard, he corrected a few spelling mistakes, and it took me an hour and a half to write it. And luckily, we got the money. And then the process was really me analysing every single post that Richard had ever posted since he started on Facebook, and everything he ever had posted on Twitter, and a personal blog that he'd written as well. She
knows me better than my own mother now, really.
Yeah, I could remember things that Richard had posted on the 7th of July 2005. I can't now, but I could at the time, and I'd say to Richard, you've posted that twice, But anyway, the process was then, after I'd done the analysing, obviously we had this whole research team watching us as well. They'd come and film me and Richard as well and interview us, because that was all part of it, because it was a research project from the EP, whatever they're called,
consortium of universities, wasn't it?
And they had a massive amount of research money. So they were collecting all the evidence of the stuff we were doing. But I formed a whole load of questions from reading Richard's posts, and then I conducted an interview with Richard, and I sent the questions to Richard in advance, so he had time to prepare, which I think was a very good idea. Richard did did a fantastic job answering the questions, and then I got back, and I actually was really stuck. I couldn't kind of get the film structured, really, and I was getting quite annoyed with it as well. And then I just went into my studio, which kind of doubles up as a sound studio, and recorded me kind of sort of doing a kind of sort of my own kind of dialogue of my take on Richard. And that was the point where I realised the film was going to come together, and then I cut the two pieces of sound together. I never really did a proper storyboard. I did a bit of a storyboard, but the rest of it was just, I mean, there wasn't very much time. I mean, I did the film very quickly. It was started in May and finished in September, and it's 7.5 minutes long. Richard did a little tiny bit of animation, but I did most of it myself. Plus I could use bits of video footage that Richard had shot that I got off Facebook. Anyway, do you want to say anything else? I don't want to tell them what the film's about. I know some people know, let them watch the film and then...
Yeah, let them watch the film, yeah.
Yeah.
We can answer anything else afterwards.
Yeah, but it was fun in some ways, but it wasn't completely fun. It was actually quite, for both of us, and particularly for Richard, quite hard. So anyway, should we put and Tom did a great job helping with the sound, and my daughter did the plays and the music. Anyway, let's see.